Hello internet, and welcome to another episode of doggoyaps. It's a serious yap, and today we'll be taking a look at the plethora of characters in Honkai Charlotte that I think may need a buff in order to be worth investing in again. Disclaimer, everything I mentioned are just my own opinion, feel free to disagree, but I hope you keep it civil. With that out the way, let's start. The first on the list, I've got the actual worst character in the entire game, but before that, I have to come clean. You're trying to get the perfect relic for the 5th time this week, aren't you? And that is truly boring. Just like using a default browser as well. Introducing one of our personal favorite browser, Opera GX. And thank you for sponsoring the video. Opera GX is a browser that comes with tons of customizations and functions for gamers like you and I. On the screen right now, you're seeing the GX mods function, which includes tons of mods that customizes your browser. Starting from the keyboard sounds, opening or closing tab sounds, unique theme and colors, dedicated wallpapers, and even a background music. Take a listen. If you would like, disable or enable some mods in the mods menu in the sidebar here to your heart's content. There are also tons of mods for you to choose from on the GX store right here. I myself am using this Hootao one, which piqued my interest. Look at how cute it is. On top of that, Opera GX introduces a whole animated wallpaper section on Opera add-ons here. There are a ton of them to choose from, and I happen to pick this Hootao one again. I just really like Hootao, okay? Aesthetic aside, Opera GX also got smarter with generative AI integration. With a click on the icon in the sidebar, you can ask Chat Sonic any questions and voila! Answer it instantly. Speaking of utility, Opera GX comes with a very handy video pop-out feature. Simply click on the button here and you'll see a pop-out version of whichever video you're watching. Perfect to use while getting some work done. You may think this browser is hard to set up, but no worries. Opera GX has got you covered with the quick import tool that you can find by clicking the gear icon, go to synchronization, and you'll see the import bookmark and settings option. Simply follow the instructions and all of your bookmarks in the settings from the previous browser are imported and ready to go. Download Opera GX now. Link in the description. It'll help me out a ton, so I'd appreciate that, guys. The first on the list, I've got the actual worst character in the entire game. We have Arlen. Now, this is a character that has been dominating the lowest tier of every list in probably every single version of the game. The simple reason being he's a character that needs to trace his health in order to deal more damage, making him a high-risk character. Now, high-risk characters are totally fine. We have people like Blade and Jingliu that has mechanics that involve reducing health, but they all come with incredible rewards like insane damage output. And that is exactly the one thing that Arlen does not have. Though he trades his health away at an aggressive rate, his damage output is not even high at all. Also, you have to consider that Arlen only does more damage if he has lower health. That means he prefers to be played at 1 HP at all times, otherwise he's just not doing much damage at all. And with that setup, that means that any stray shot from the enemy is gonna kill him. Any random dots applied onto him will mean his demise, making him an incredibly tough character to use. For a character of that punishing of a risk, his damage lacks a lot to be desired as well. Unlike any other similar risk-based characters that trades HP away, they actually can be played even if you heal them as well. Like say Blade needing to take a certain amount of health away, but does not lose his edge even if his heal. And that is not the case with Arlen. You always want him at 1 HP, and if you heal him, his damage just straight up disappears. Now, comparing a 4-star to a 5 is unfair, but weirdly enough though, there hasn't been a single HP reduction based 4-star in the game yet other than Arlen, so there's not quite a good comparison for him. But I would say if there is any comparison to be made, weighing Arlen against a lot of the 4-star DPS that we have in the game, like say QQ or say Shueyi, he still lacks damage to say outperform the rest, at the same time has such a punishing mechanic. To take a look at how he's currently being used, the most ideal way to use him would be with a shield character like Gepardo the Venturi. The simple reason being you cannot heal him, but yet if he's attacked at all, he dies. The one thing that could stop that would be a shield. And even then, the moment their shield ever breaks, Arlen may just die. And so with that, I'm very convinced that Arlen could use a buff. I'm sure you would agree as well, right? Now, instead of just pointing out the characters that I think should be buffed, I will also be suggesting how I would buff them. So now, mechanically speaking though, I would love if Arlen is able to gain a shield himself based on the HP loss on top of getting his multipliers a bit of a push up. By doing so, I think it doesn't overbuff Arlen and making him the strongest character in the game. It's also going to make him less punishing to use since he has a shield himself, and on top of needing to be that low of HP, he does need a bit of a multiplier push. Now, chances are I don't see Hoyo getting a buff patch in for existing characters characters, but I hope they say introduce new forms for these over characters that also help their kit, since some of them are clearly not quite good in today's meta. I think it would actually be so exciting to do that for older characters as well, rather than just never touching them while the meta is always growing harder. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Moving up next with the character that I think would love a buff, it would be my boy Yanqing. Oh, where do I even start with this guy? You may know him from the UNICEF anti-bullying campaigns, but I know him from bullying him personally. Now the problem with Yanqing in game is the fact that his talent forces him to never take damage. If he ever does, his talent's buff, named Soul Steel Sync, will be gone. That means his stat plummets and his damage output lowers as well. The current workaround to his kit is very similar to Arlen. You just want to use a shielder with Yanqing. But same with Arlen again, the moment the shield breaks and he takes any bit of damage at all, Yanqing suddenly does way less damage. In my opinion, for a 5-star to have this sort of detriment is rather frustrating, right? Now at the start of Star Rail, Yanqing was actually quite strong for his freezes as well. But with the meta changing and Hoyo literally giving you a top tier hunt path doctoration for free, Yanqing's value simply isn't too high anymore. And you'll see scenario where people straight up throw curse words when they lose a 50-50 to Yanqing, right? Hence I actually think it's really helpful to give him a buff to at least prevent everybody from keeping him at level 1 and have him grow more. You know, you got a 5-star, you might as well feel a bit excited. Make sure they're decent, right? Now on the topic of how he would be buffed though, is rather interesting. I do understand if they just made every starter character strong as heck, there will be no reason to pull for any new characters, so that would also be a tragedy. Hence I think a simple buff would work for him, and in my opinion, this is what I would make it to be. Have Yanqing's talent Soul Steel Sync buff stay the way that it is, but have the crit rate and crit damage buff increase be permanently effective. So yeah, basically just straight up add it as a stat. And that way, the only difference in having Soul Steel Sync or not is your chance of activating his follow-up attack that could freeze the enemy. This will make him a much more consistent damage dealer, yet has a unique chance to freeze enemies with Soul Steel Sync online. With that change, I do not think he'll straight up be the strongest DPS that you won't need to pull any other new characters, but yet he'll actually be pretty reliable and usable as an ice hunt DPS. Let me know if you agree. Moving on to the list, a character that I think is due for a buff would be, unfortunately, Bailu. Yep, the character that I've basically made into my channel's personality. Now with Bailu, the obvious complaint about her is always for the fact that she cannot cleanse, which is totally understandable. However, back in the day though, you can easily just survive through any dot damage or direct damage in general, and her major trace that gives allies with invigoration 10% damage reduction. However, with new bosses being introduced like the Adventuring boss or the 3 Ballerina Dancer boss we currently have, they all share the ability of being able to consistently control your team, and that is Bailu's main issue today. If your team is being consistently controlled, Bailu's gonna have a lot of issues trying to keep your team alive, or she would have her hands be full by just trying to heal all of your allies while all of them are being controlled and not being able to do damage themselves. Now there is a way Bailu can deal with control debuffs, and that is with a revive mechanic that she has. However though, she can only use that once per battle, and you need to die for that to happen, so not reliable. I'll actually say one of the easiest and most practical way to deal with this is for Hoyo to add a light code that could cleanse a debuff. Like that does sound very possible for Hoyo to do, right? But before we talk about that though, there's actually still another detrimental problem with Bailu, that being her skill. If you're not aware, Bailu has a very pointless gamble mechanic with her skill, which is a bounce heal skill that you can only control where the first bounce goes. That is a big problem, especially dealing with AoE damage dealers or under scenarios with a lot of dots. If your team as a whole take damage consistently, Bailu's skill is now a worrying dice roll that you have to hope it heals the 2 or 3 characters you need healing for. Now there are 4-star characters like Natasha or Lynx that straight up can't heal more than 1 character with their skill, but Bailu is a whole ass 5-star that you can't really get for free, would mean that it isn't ridiculous to say she's supposed to be better than the level of 4-star. But certainly I wouldn't want Bailu to just be the best sustainment again that you no longer have a reason to pull for anyone else. Hence I think the best solution is giving her a 4-star Herda store like her with a minor cleanse. Perhaps it allows Bailu to cleanse 1 debuff on an ultimate along with a minor HP increase for the holder. On top of that, it's just turning the bounce of her skill into straight up a 3 target heal, but decrease the amount of healing of each, since the LT and invigoration buff already heals a lot. With that, I don't think she'll just be discarded with pure disappointment anyone gets her, and at the same time, she doesn't just replace any single limited 5-star healer, right? You still get a bunch of value getting better sustains from limited batters like Luocha, Fushred, or even Huohuo. And with that marks the end of my Yap Fest. Again though, these are all my opinions, but I really made sure to consider everything objectively. Feel free to disagree, but I hope you don't go for my family. Let me know what you think though, especially with who else you think would love a buff currently. And on top of that, how would you buff them as well? I do think that's the best way to discuss this, rather than just pointing out who would use a buff and not include how they would be potentially buffed, right? And in the end though, the game is actually quite balanced anyway, where nearly every single character can still be valuable compatible one way or another. Even if Hoyo never buffed anyone, I actually think they already did a great job of balancing with the amount of characters in the banner's release. And furthermore, I don't even think the buff is needed, but it would be exciting to see older characters or characters that are not really in the curve of the current meta could be introduced with like a new form, a new path, or just a new element like what we currently have with say March 7th. Introduce that in the game with a side story as well. That's just all simple and fun. That would be exciting for players to come back into the game because we probably have an old character that we pulled before that simply isn't worth investing in. Imagine if they improved their kit via a form change and a story as well. That would be pretty dang fun in my opinion. And that will be all. Hope you guys enjoyed and take care.